All right, so on Monday, we started off with a little law of sines introduction. I didn't really have you guys doing any problems unless you followed along and took notes with the ones that I did on the video. So today you've got some law of sines practice. There's 8 questions. 4 of them you're finding a missing angle. 4 of them you're finding a missing side. Um, just for a little bit of supplemental help, I decided to do number 1 from your homework here. So um, feel free to follow along, copy it down onto your homework, and use this as a chance to make sure that you know what's going on. That being said, let's get started. So my goal is to use law of sines, and I forgot to actually write down the question, but the question asked us to find the measure of angle A. All right, so angle A is up here. We're finding this angle here. All right, so if you've got some law of sines notes out, or you'll just recall that when we're using law of sines, we are going to label all of the angles, capital A, capital B, and capital C, and the sides that are opposite those angles, lowercase a, lowercase b, and lowercase c. So I'm going to go about labeling those sides real quick. So A should be the side that's opposite of angle A, which should make that A. B should be opposite of angle B, and C opposite angle C. Right? So I'm looking at my picture, and we've got 3 numbers there, right? And you'll recall that we need 3 numbers to set up and solve our law of sines. So I'll write up the formula up here just for reference, but it's the sine of A over side A equals the sine of angle B over B equals the sine of C over C. And so we've got to pick A, B, either A and B, A and C, or B and C, and then we can go about solving those proportions there. So hopefully you guys are noticing that we really don't have either of the C values. We don't have a C side length. We don't have a C angle. So to me, it makes sense that we would use A and B and use those. So we can just start by filling that out. Okay, so I want to take the sine of A. Well, A is what we're trying to find, so we don't have it yet, so we're just going to leave it as sine of A. The side length A is 17 feet. So sine of A over the side length A. And then for B, got the sine of B. B is 45 degrees, so sine of 45 degrees. And the side length B is 20 feet. Right? So now I've got an equality, and I can start to solve for A. So that's my goal, is to get A by itself on the left side of the equation, everything else on the right side. And then at that point, I can just plug it into a calculator, right? So first step, I'm going to get 17 out of the denominator by multiplying by 17. And if I do that to the left side, I also have to do that to the right side. Okay, so now I'm left with the sine of A is equal to 17 times sine of 45 degrees over 20. Okay, well, hopefully you'll recall that to get an angle, I have to use my inverse trig, right? So to use the inverse trig, I want to take the opposite of sine, which is inverse sine, and that'll cancel out the sines. But if I do it to one side, I also have to do it to the other. So we'll get that angle A, we've finally isolated it, is equal to the inverse sine of 17 times sine of 45 degrees, all divided by 20. And so at this point, I could plug this into a calculator, right? And just like last time we discussed, you could either plug in the inside and get out some value and then take the inverse sine of that, or you could plug it in all as one. Important things to keep in mind is that you're only taking the sine of 45. Make sure you close that parentheses on the sine of 45. And make sure that if you're going to plug it all in one step, that everything that is inside the parentheses for inverse sine is actually inside the parentheses when you plug it into the calculator. So let's plug that in. 17 times the sine of 45 divided by 20 is 0.7232. So I just plugged in the inside, and then I still have to take the inverse sine of that. So we'll do inverse sine of the previous answer. And it seems that my calculator may be in the wrong mode, so make sure I'm in. Oh yes, I was not in degree mode, so that will help. All right, let's try again. All right, so this value is actually 0.6010, and if I take the inverse sine of that, I get 36.94, which makes far more sense. So the previous answer that I got that didn't make sense was 0.8085, which you'll recall that we're looking for an angle, and that doesn't really make sense as an angle. It just doesn't make sense. The angle would be less than a single degree, right? If you're looking at the picture there. So this 36.94 does make quite a bit of sense, and it seems like that could potentially be that angle. So 36.94. If we wanted to, we could find the other angle as well, and use law of sines to find that last remaining side. We don't have to do that because our only goal was to solve for A, but we do have the ability to do that using what we know about triangles and what we know about the law of sines. If you'd like more examples, please let me know. Just a reminder, this is number 1 on your homework, so you may as well copy it down. Don't spend any extra time that you don't need to, right? Let me know if you have any questions, and hope you guys are all doing well.